So welcome. Thank you for being here today. We are going to focus today on the upper body and the ribs and doing a few twists. And the only props we'll really need is a couple of blankets or towels. You can do with one if that's what you've got. I always like to have a second one just for a bit of a pillow. We're going to be laying on our back and on our sides towards the second half of the class. So it's nice to have a little bit of support when you're laying on the ground. Um, but you can always use your arm for a pillow when you're laying on your side too. So grab those if you've got them, if you'd like to use them. And I thought we'd start by just having a little bit of awareness of our rib cage. I've got the skeleton here just to have a bit of a visual. So sometimes when we're working with the upper body and the rib cage, I like to kind of get a sense for where my own ribs are in space. So if you bring your hands to your ribs anywhere, you could just kind of get a sense for what they feel like. You kind of dig around and find the feeling of some of the bones of your own rib cage. And one thing you might like to do is try and feel around for this bottom border of your ribs on the front and the sides. And just see if you can kind of locate. It doesn't have to be precise. If you find it's hard to find your bones in there, that's okay. See what you can connect with. And then come up to the top of the rib cage, and you could probably feel your collarbones up here. See if you can find those. And if you feel just below your collarbones, you can kind of dig in and see if you could feel a little bit for the first and second rib here. And you can bring your hand all the way around to the back, and there's a bit more muscle back here, but if you have a look, you can kind of get a sense for the back of the top ribs, the top of the shoulder blades here. The top of the rib cage, it's kind of like there's a little circle here with the top of the shoulder blades, the back ribs, the the clavicles here on the front. So just getting a sense for how that feels, and of course around the bottom we've got this opening at the bottom as well. You can also have one hand on the front and one hand on the back of your ribs. Just get a sense for what this bony cage feels like. Okay, and once you've got that little bit of connection with your rib cage, we'll start on our mats in a seated position. And you're welcome also to sit in a chair if you'd like for this practice. So I'll meet you back on your mats. And when you've found a comfortable seat, just rest your hands wherever they're comfy. Soften your shoulders. Maybe soften or lower or close your eyes. And take a moment just to notice how you feel. Simply observing with a kind attention. Just check in with yourself. And bring that gentle, observing attention to your breathing. Just noticing the rhythm of breath, noticing any sensations or movements inside your body that accompany the breath. Now, in your mind's eye, just picture your rib cage. Just see if you can sense a little bit of expansion and settling back of your rib cage with each inhale and exhale. And even if you can't sense it, it's very subtle to just tune in this way. Maybe just picture that. Okay, and now let's bring our hands up to our ribs, starting with your hands kind of on the sides of your low ribs. Just breathe. No need to change anything. Just notice. Can you sense movement at your ribs with each breath? If you like, you can also try one hand on the front and one hand on the back of your rib cage. And can you sense any front to back movement? Okay, and now we'll switch from just observing the breath at the rib cage to thinking about intentionally breathing into your ribs. So, holding your ribs in whatever way is comfortable, can you try to inhale all the way into the bottom of your rib cage? Front, sides, back, anywhere that makes most sense to you. And generate a little bit more of that feeling of expanding and contracting with each breath. Okay, let's let that go. Release your arms, shake them out. Rest your hands, do a few shoulder circles, nice and simple. And as you move your shoulder blades on the back of your ribs are moving along with them. It's all attached here. Just bring a little bit of awareness there. Picture that movement. You can circle the other way a couple of times as well if you like. And let that go. Nice. Let everything rest for a breath. And as you inhale, reach your arms up overhead. Draw your palms together at the top. As you exhale, trace your hands down the center line of your body. Let's do that a few more times. Go with the rhythm of your breath if that feels natural for you. As you bring your hands down, let this go. Release your arms. Give them a bit of movement if you'd like. Rest your hands. Nice. Let's move our neck a little bit now. So bring your right hand down to touch the ground or hold the side of your chair if you're on a chair. Keep your hand down, but lengthen through your spine. Just imagine you could get a little bit taller. Soften the tops of your shoulders. Tip your left ear over towards your left shoulder a little bit. And breathe here. Just allow your head to feel nice and heavy. And your shoulders can stay soft. And then turn your nose down towards that same shoulder. Take a breath or two here. And as you let this one go, just let your head drop down towards the center of your chest. Relax the other hand. Let your head be heavy in this position. And then come all the way back up. Have a little bit of movement if you'd like. And let's do that on the other side. So left hand down. Bring some length to your spine. Soften your shoulders. And just tip your head over in the other direction. See if you can get a bit of a stretch sensation here on the side of your neck as your head just is staying here nice and heavy. And then turn your nose down towards your shoulders. See if that changes that stretch for you. And then let it go. Let your head hang down for a breath or so. And then come right back up. Nice. Okay. Now, if you're seated on the ground, we're going to stretch our legs out in front of us like this. If you're seated in your chair, you can stay right where you are. Okay, give your legs a little wiggle wherever you are. Okay, and we're gonna do a little bit of a twist. And we're gonna start with a really simple little twist and then go into a bit of a bigger one. So find your rib cage with your hands again. Bring a little bit of length to your spine. And we're just going to twist, but think about your ribs turning to go into the twist. So your shoulders are just following your ribs. Your head doesn't need to go farther than your ribs either. It can just stay nice and easy where it is. See how much twist you've got there when you're just moving your ribs. And then come back to center. And we'll do that the other way. And let's go side to side a few times. Can you let your shoulders just take a back seat and follow along? Or do they want to tense up and pull you into the twist? See if you can ask them to be soft and easy. And come on back to center. Release your hands, shake them out. All right. Now we're going to do a bigger twist. So if you're on the ground, you can bend your right knee and bring your foot to the floor like this. If you're in a chair, if you have a block, you can place the right foot up on a block. If you don't have a block, that's fine. You can just stay with both feet on the floor. Awesome. And then bring your right hand down to the ground or the side of your chair. Add a bit of length to your spine and tune into your breath. As you inhale, float your left arm up. And as you exhale, turn your ribs to find that twist again. You could bring this left arm down to rest on your right knee if you like, but try not to really press arm and knee together. Let that contact be nice and light. And breathe here. And make your way back to center nice and gently. Bring your legs back to the starting place. Have a bit of a wiggle. Maybe legs want to move. Maybe spine wants to move. Let's do that on the other side. When you're ready, bending the other knee. Bringing your left hand down, anchoring to the ground or the side of your chair. And then bring your attention to your spine. Can you get a little bit taller in your spine? Can you do that without scrunching your shoulders up? How much can you lengthen without the shoulders trying to help? And then let's move with our breath. As you inhale, bring the other arm up and follow your exhale into the twist. Floating the right arm down when you're ready, resting it lightly on the bent knee and breathing easy here. And make your way all the way back to center. Have a moment, have a bit of a wiggle, and come on back to sitting in stillness when you're ready. Just take an easy breath. And as you do, maybe just notice, how does it feel in your rib cage? Does it feel like your breath can move easily here? Do you have any more awareness than when we started? Okay, let's come into a tabletop position. So if you're on the ground, it's going to look like this on hands and knees. If you're working with a chair and you don't want to be on your knees or putting pressure on your wrists, and it'll just look like this, just having your hands on the back of your chair and coming into a bit of a tabletop. You can be way up here close to your chair, you can be way back here, doesn't matter, whatever works for you. I'm going to be down on the ground. I'll give you a few pointers for doing these different movements both ways. So I'm going to get some padding for my knees. You're welcome to grab that as well if you'd like. And whatever position you're in, let's move our spine a little bit. So as you inhale, arch your back a little bit. And as you exhale, round your back. And we're just going to go back and forth a few times. Maybe you'd like to follow the rhythm of your breath. Inhales as you arch your back into cow pose, and exhales as you round your back, coming into cat pose. Couple more times. And then make your way back into more of a neutral spine. Let's do just some simple side bends here. So just look over one shoulder and see if you can try to pull that same hip up towards your shoulder. And you might get a stretch on the other side of your waist. And back to center and go the other way. And same thing here. We'll try this a few times. If you like, you can exhale as you side bend and inhale as you come back to a neutral spine. So try that or go at your own pace, doesn't matter. And let's meet back in a neutral spine. Take a moment to just rest. You can stay right where you are, or if you're on the ground, you can come back to a child's pose if you like. And then come all the way back up to the starting place, tabletop or standing behind your chair. Okay, so from here, whatever position you're in, let's start by stretching one leg back like this. Nice. Toes tucked under, heels a little bit up off of the ground. All we're going to do here is press back. Reach back through your heel. You might get a bit of stretch on the back of your leg. See how this feels for you. And then soften that. Bring your leg around to the side. Find a position where the whole sole of your foot can be in contact with the ground. Nice. And if you're standing at the back of your chair with your hands on your chair, if you like, you can lean over to the other side. See if that gives you a bit of stretch in this leg. And wherever you are, see if you can push that foot down into the ground and imagine that you could pull up from your ankle up to your hip. And then when you're ready, we're going to step this leg all the way forward to come into a little bit of a lunge. So find your way into a bit of a lunge, whatever that looks like for you. Lovely. And then feel that front foot on the ground, back knee, or maybe it's just your back foot if you're standing. Press them down a little bit and try and squeeze them towards each other. See if that brings a little more engagement to your legs. And you can stay right where you are, or you can come upright and maybe lift your arms up. Pick the option that suits you here and take a few breaths. And then come on back down. Nice. If you're on the ground, bring both hands to the inside of your front foot. And then whether you're standing or on the ground, just shimmy this front foot out to the side a little bit. Lovely. Add a little bit of a turnout. So your toes are turned out to the side a little bit, your knee as well. And then if you're on the ground, you can walk that back leg out in the other direction and just spin the back foot in a little bit. Nice. If you're standing, you can just have the front leg out to the side. That's fine. And now we're just going to try a little bit of movement here. Especially if you're standing, the movement might be just to bend your elbows and lower your chest down a little bit. And if you're on the ground, you can do that, or you can add a little bit of forward to back movement. Doesn't really matter here. Just get creative. See what kind of movements you can try. See if it brings a little bit of stretch to your hips, to your legs. If you're on the ground, you can do some circles too. Just letting your weight circle around the front foot and both hands. All right. And when you're ready, let this one go. Come back to your low lunge where we started. Okay. We're going to meet back in our tabletop shape. So take a minute to transition back to that position, whether you're standing or on hands and knees. Okay, nice. And now we're going to do a little bit of wrist movement. So if you're in tabletop, you can stay right where you are. If you're using your chair, I'll show you another way of doing this. What we'll do is turn the chair so that the seat of the chair is facing you, so that you can come to this position with your shoulders a little bit more stacked on top of your wrists. And there's a third option. If this feels like a lot of weight on your wrists, you can do this at the wall, just with your hands touching the wall. And that way there is almost no pressure, just a little bit of a different angle, a little bit of a stretch. Okay, so let's do this all together. Whatever position you're in, just walk your hands out so that your fingers are turning out to the sides. We're just spinning your hands out a little bit. Nice. And let's add some movement here. You can shift forward and back a little bit. If you're at the wall, it might make more sense to go side to side. Just see what kind of movement you can find in whatever shape you're in. If you're in tabletop like me here, you can do even a circly movement. See what feels all right for your wrists. Maybe they want more stretch, maybe less. And let this one go. Bring your hands back to a more neutral shape. Nice. If you're on hands and knees, come on up to standing on your knees. If you're at your chair, you can just come up to standing. Just give everything a bit of a shake out. Maybe some little circles, maybe a little bit of a wiggly kind of movement. Awesome. And now we're going to stretch the top of the hands a little bit. So if you're at your chair, what you might want to do is just have your wrist in this position. Use the other hand for a little bit of something to hold against your hand. And if you're on the ground, if you would like a bit more stretch, you can do this by just turning one hand over. So the top of your hand's on the ground, your fingers are pointing back towards your knee. And try and find a place where you're not holding tension in your shoulder or bending your elbow. Walking your hand back closer to your knee will take some of the pressure off. So pick the option that suits you and take a few breaths here. Slowly let this one go with a little bit of movement. Let's do that on the other side. Nice. Once you get yourself set up here, breathe easy. And gently let this one go. A little bit of movement, really gently in your wrists. Okay. And before we do the other leg, let's do a little bit more arm movement. So either standing or sitting on your knees or sitting on your chair, doesn't matter. And take one arm out to the side like this. Bring the other hand to rest on the front of your shoulder. And we're just going to do some rotations here. So looks like this, just rotating the whole arm in and out a few times. So think about rotating this upper arm bone in your shoulder socket. So the shoulder itself doesn't need to move. It's just the arm moving. And check that it's not just your forearm moving because it's very mobile. It can do a lot of movement without the upper arm participating. So just see if you can coax this upper arm into leading the movement. And let that go with a little shake. And now let's do some nice big circles. Try and circle up, around, and back. And as you do this, bring one hand to the front of your ribs and see how big you can make those circles without your ribs wanting to turn. So, how big are those circles when you isolate it to just your arm? All right, we'll do a couple more. And here you can let your ribs join in if you like. As you bring your arm up, you can open your ribs out to the side, let your arm come around and forward, and try that a few times. Whatever feels good here, nice big movements. And let it go. Nice. Other side. So start with our nice little rotations. The other hand could tell you if the shoulder wants to roll forward and back or if it wants to lift and lower as you do this. Just ask it to take a back seat. Isolate this to just the arm moving. And let that one go. Try your circles. You can have the other hand on your rib cage for some feedback about what's going on there. How big can those circles be on this side without your ribs trying to help? And then let the ribs come along for the ride if you'd like. Stay in a range that feels okay for your shoulder. Might be that your shoulder wants a smaller movement today, and that's fine. Nice. Let it go. Shake it out. Okay, rest your hands. Take a breath. How does your breath feel in your rib cage now? Is there a bit more space to breathe into? Do you notice your ribs moving a bit more? Okay, let's even ourselves out and do all those stretches on the other leg. So come on back to either tabletop on the ground or with your hands on your chair. And we'll start by stretching the other leg back behind us, toes tucked under. Just reach back through your heel. Maybe you're pressing it down towards the ground if you're standing. Maybe you're just reaching it right back behind you if you're here on the ground. And then bring your leg around to the side. Try to set yourself up so the whole bottom of your foot can be resting on the ground. And if you're standing, you can lean your hips over in the other direction. And in either option, press your foot down into the ground and try to drag up from your foot up to your hip. And when you're ready, step that leg all the way forward. Find a lunge shape, whether you're standing up or whether you're down here on the ground. And then feel your connection to the ground through your feet or your foot and your knee. Try to drag front foot and back knee or foot towards each other and then come on up a little bit more upright. Maybe you want to take a different arm position. See what suits you and take a few breaths right there. And softly bring your hands back down to the ground or your chair. Let's do our little hip stretch here. So walking the front foot out to the side, adding a little bit of a turn out, a little bit of external rotation. Both hands can be on the inside of your front foot if you're on the ground. And then let's walk the other knee out in the other direction. Let's spin the back foot in a little bit. So this leg's going into a little bit of external rotation too. It just makes it a little bit easier to move some of these hip stretches, to have our legs in this position. And of course, if you're at the chair, it can be just the front leg doing this. And now let's move a bit. You might want to dip your chest down a little bit. You might want to shift forward and back, side to side. You can do some circly movements if that feels good for you. Okay, let's let this go. Come on back to your lunge shape. And if you're at your chair, you can just come right up to standing. If you're on the ground, I'll give you an option to go into a forward fold here. Just tucking your back toes under, lifting that back knee up off the mat, and stepping the back foot forward. Once you're up here, you could soften your knees and let your head hang down, or you can stay up here in more of a halfway position. If you're at your chair, you can join in and try a forward fold however you'd like. Take a breath or two. And then make your way all the way up, nice and slowly. Come on back up to standing. And give everything a bit of a wiggle. And tune in, just notice once again, how does everything feel now? Okay, so now we're going to use some of our blankets and come down to laying on the ground to do some nice shoulder movements. So the first use of the blanket is totally optional. We're going to be laying on our back for this, and you can lay flat on your back, or you can take your blanket, take an edge of your blanket that's about this size, and then just fold it over just a couple of inches like this. We're going to lay back and rest our spine on this blanket strip. So you want it to be roughly the right size to rest comfortably on. And what I like to do is fold this over one more time. So I just grab this edge where the blanket is folded over and make a little accordion fold. Fold it one more time just so we've got a little bit of height here to rest on. You can do it in whatever way. You could even do a little bit of a roll, like a lightly rolled up edge of the blanket. And now we're going to lay on this. So bring that blanket strip up to the wherever your head's going to be on your mat and try to line it up kind of along the middle of the mat. And what we're going to do is lay down and move our arms a little bit. So check that there isn't too much up around the top of your mat. If you've got props around the top of your mat, you can move it. If you've got your mat at the wall, just make sure you're not so close to the wall that you can't move your arms. So what we're going to do now is lay back onto the blanket strip. So the strip is kind of on your spine, the upper part of your spine. And we want the edge of the blanket here to line up with the part of your spine that's kind of at the bottom of your shoulder blades. So it doesn't have to be exact, but try to get yourself set up in that way. And once you're laying down on the ground with your spine on the blanket, you can find a nice reference point on the front of your body to see if you're lined up well. So bring your fingertips to that bottom edge of your ribs. Just walk your fingertips in towards the center of the front of your ribs where the two sides meet. And that point is roughly where we want the edge of the blanket to be lined up under. And again, it doesn't have to be perfect. Once you're here, just let your arms rest out by your sides, palms facing up if that's comfortable, and just let your shoulder blades kind of soften, settle down on either side of the blanket strip. They might be touching the ground, they might not be, that's fine. Just let them feel heavy. And we're going to start off by just taking a few breaths right here. Just let gravity do its thing. Let the back of your body soften and settle down towards the ground a little bit more. All right, now let's try a bit of movement here. So reach your arms up towards the ceiling, fingertips pointing up, but soften your shoulder blades so they can settle down towards the ground a bit more. And from here, we're just going to lower and lift our arms. So first, reach your fingertips up towards the ceiling. Maybe you can feel your shoulder blades lifting away from the ground a bit here. and then soften, lower them back down. And that's our movement. We'll try that a few times. Lift and lower. Try to do it without too much tension in your jaw or the top of your shoulders or your belly. See if you can let this be a pretty soft and easy movement. And then let your shoulder blades rest on the ground. And this time we're just going to reach our arms up overhead a little bit. And come right back up to the starting place when you're ready. We'll do this one a few times. This time, see if you can let your rib cage stay still. So when you reach your arms overhead, if you find that your ribs are popping up, then make the arm movements smaller to allow your rib cage to stay nice and steady. And you don't need to brace to hold your ribs in place. Just change the arm movement so that your ribs can stay nice and quiet, nice and still. Next time you bring your hands back up and let this one go, just bring your arms down. Back to the starting place with arms out a little bit to your sides, palms facing up. Just notice how everything feels now. Okay. And now if you've been using the blanket, we are going to set it off to the side. So just roll away from it, move it out of the way, come back to laying flat on your back. And once you're on your back, just tune in. Notice how does it feel now to have your upper back and your shoulders flat on the ground. And now bring your arms out in a T position. Again, palms facing up towards the ceiling. And now we'll do some snow angel arms. Just tracing your fingers along the ground, bring your arms up overhead. Let your hands float away from the ground whenever that feels more natural. And then bring your arms back down. Let's do a few more snow angels here. Can you move in a way that allows your rib cage to stay nice and still? So when you bring your arms up, if you're arching your back, can you change the arm movement? Bringing your hands up farther away from the ground will probably allow you to be a little bit more settled in your spine and your rib cage as you move. Okay, let's let this one go. Take a moment. You might want to have a little bit of a stretch or movement. I always like this one, just bringing arms and legs up towards the ceiling and just wiggling everything. Let everything just kind of move freely. And maybe you like to bring your knees in towards your chest and give yourself a little hug before we switch positions again. Okay, come on all the way over to your side. And really nice and slowly bring yourself back up to a seat. Let that transition be really nice and slow to preserve that nice sense of settled relaxation that we've been working on. Okay, let's grab our blanket and change up how we are folding it. So, blanket or towel, whatever you've got, fold it up so that you've got a nice wide blanket strip like this. And we're gonna roll it up. So grab one edge and just start rolling. And what we're looking for is a blanket roll that when you press down on it, it's not going to completely squash down to the ground. So if it does that, then maybe just undo it and roll it up a little bit more tightly. And this is going to come up towards a little bit higher than the middle of your mat. And then if you have a pillow or a second blanket, you can have it right up at the head of your mat. And this time we're going to lay down on our side. Okay, so I'm going to show you where we're going and then you can join me in this position. So just have a look at me to see what it looks like first. We're going to lay down on our side and have the blanket roll on the side of our rib cage. So you want to check that it's not up in your armpit or down on the side of your waist, but right in the middle here. So it'll look like this, just laying down with that blanket roll under the side of the ribs. And then your pillow or your folded blanket can be supporting the side of your head. Or if you don't have a second one, just rest on your arm like that. Okay, so whatever you need to do to find that position, get yourself comfy. And this could be a tender area to have the blanket roll. So if it feels like too much, unroll the blanket a bit. It can even be one tiny little fold in the blanket, just to have a little bit of elevation, a little bit more awareness in the side of your rib cage. And get everything else comfortable. So do what you need to do to feel comfortable here. And now we're just going to breathe. And just like before, when we were trying to breathe into our rib cage on purpose, this time direct your breath into the side of your ribs that's resting on the blanket roll. So just imagine that as you inhale, the side of your ribs can kind of expand down into the blanket roll a little bit. And we'll stay here for a few more breaths, maybe 5 or 6 breaths. But feel free to set it off to the side if it's no longer comfortable for you. And when you're ready, we're going to slowly let this one go. So, again, really nice slow transition. Use your hands to gently lift yourself back up. We're going to use those blankets for the other side. So, just kind of move them off to the side. Try not to let them unroll. Okay. And once you're here, you can stay seated, you can lay down. It's up to you. But we're just going to take a breath or two to notice how everything feels, especially your ribs. How does your breath feel moving in your rib cage now? Okay, and we're going to switch sides. You can just roll over to the other side. I'm going to switch to having my head up on the other side of the mat so that I can still kind of face you guys. Take a moment to get yourself set up just like before. Same thing. Try not to have the blanket roll up in your armpit or down the side of your waist. Try to find the sides of your bony ribs there. Take a minute to do whatever you need to do to feel reasonably comfortable here. And then come on back to your breath. And again, imagine that you could send your breath into the side of your ribs that are resting on the blanket roll. Just expanding the side of your ribs down into the blanket and then softening them. So breathe and just allow your ribs to move naturally. Take another one or two breaths before we switch it up again. And then again, really, really gently lift yourself back up and move those blankets out of the way when you're ready. And take a moment again. Just breathe. Notice how everything feels now. Okay. Hopefully, everything's feeling nice after that little bit of passive stretching. We're going to finish off with one more movement. It'll be a nice big side twist. So we're going to lay on our side again, and same thing. Make sure there's space at the top of your mat so you can move your arm. So this is going to be very similar to what we did when we were in a more upright position. What we're going to do is kind of like those big arm circles we were doing. First, just reaching your arm up overhead. And then, if you like, you can open your ribs up towards the ceiling and let this arm come all the way back around, kind of behind you. So, we'll do that a few times. And if that feels like too much for your shoulder, you're welcome to just do some half circles, reaching up overhead and then back down. So, really make the movement suit you, whatever your body would like today. Let's try that a few times. Maybe just coming up halfway, maybe opening up into a bit of a twist. Go a few times. Nice big movements. All right. And if you're doing those big twists, when you come all the way into your twist, if you like, you can just pause here, take a breath or two, and then come all the way over to your back. Another breath with your back flat on the ground. See if maybe you can feel the back of your rib cage on the ground as you breathe. Okay, and then you can roll right over to your other side. Again, I'm going to switch sides just so I can face towards you. Do those nice big side twists or just half side twists a few times on this side. So try them out when you're ready. Whatever version of this works for you, breathe easy as you move. And again, take a moment to pause. Maybe you want to come right back into the big twist. Maybe you pause wherever you're comfortable. And then come all the way over to your back again. Rest this time with your arms out by your sides, your knees bent, and your feet on the floor. And then walk your feet a little bit wider apart, maybe a little farther away from your seat. And we're just going to let our knees windshield wiper from side to side. So a different kind of twist, upper body staying still this time and legs moving. And if you like, you can let your legs move over to one side and just stay there for a breath or two. And go over the other way for another breath or so. And come on all the way back to center. If there's any last movements or stretches you'd like to do before we go into our resting pose, you could do that now. Okay. And now we're going to go into our resting pose. So take a moment to get comfortable. You might want to stay on your back. You might want to come back to your side, or maybe you'd like to even come and sit up. It's up to you. If you've got those blankets, you can use one for a pillow. You can use a rolled up blanket underneath your knees if you like, whatever you'd like to be comfortable. And while you get set up, I'm going to turn the lights down here in the room. When you've gotten yourself nice and comfortable, take a moment to really feel into the position you've chosen and make any little adjustments that you need to feel as comfortable as you can. And then bring your attention back to your breath. Draw in a few deeper breaths. And each time you exhale, see if you can soften a little bit more. Allow the weight of your body to rest into the support of the ground or your chair, wherever you are. And as you continue to breathe, let go of any kind of effort. Let go of any kind of doing at all. Give yourself the next few minutes to just be here, allowing yourself to rest.